A few years ago, a friend of mine came over excited because he had bought what he called the deal of the century. It was a nice-looking sedan, shiny, with a clean interior and a seller who almost seemed like a saint. But the honeymoon lasted exactly 1 week. 7 days later, the car started making a noise that wouldn't even fit in a horror movie. When we opened the hood, we discovered the saddest mechanical festival I have ever seen. Leaks everywhere, screws that weren't the right size, seals glued with colored silicone, and even an improvised part that looked like it came from a 3D printer that ran out of filament. It was as if someone had tried to repair the engine with the first thing they found in an old toolbox, or in a toy box. That day it became clear that the reality is that a used car can be an excellent purchase, but it can also be a problem costing thousands of dollars disguised as a bargain. And the worst part is that most of these problems can be detected before you pay, as long as you know what to look for. That's why this video exists. Today we are going to go through the 12 most important checks you should do before buying a used car. 12 points that any mechanic would check in seconds, but that many buyers never look at. Because yes, the car might be shining on the outside, but so is a coffin. Let's start with number 12. Number 12, visual engine inspection, leaks, seals, and shoddy repairs. The first step to evaluate any used car is to open the hood and take a few minutes to observe it calmly. No quick glances. No trusting the phrase, "the engine is perfect." Here you have to become a detective, because the engine talks, and sometimes it screams. The first thing you should look for are leaks. It doesn't matter if they are small drops, stains, or dark areas around the gaskets. All of that is a sign that something isn't sealed as it should be. Oil around the valve cover, moisture in the lower part of the engine, stains in the area of the water pump or thermostat, or even a buildup of dirt mixed with old oil. All of this points to a lack of maintenance or poor repairs. But the most important part of this inspection is to see if there is silicone or sealant used excessively. An engine might need sealant for certain repairs, but when you see different colors, red silicone on one side, blue on another, and a kind of questionable brown on the bottom, that indicates the engine was opened several times and probably not by a professional. Often, that patch job is a sign of internal problems that the owner tried to disguise without actually fixing the root cause. Parts that don't match, screws of different types, rusty brackets mixed with new components. All of that indicates an irregular history. And believe me, an engine full of makeshift solutions is a problematic engine. If a car shows too many visible shoddy repairs, it's best to thank the seller for their time and walk away. Number 11. Oil condition and internal engine appearance. After looking at the outside of the engine, it's time to check the oil. This is one of the simplest tests, but also one of the most revealing. The dipstick tells the real story of the engine. You just have to know how to read it. First, check the level. If it's very low, it can indicate neglect, internal consumption, or leaks. Then, check the color and texture. The oil should look relatively clean, even if it's somewhat dark. But if it looks thick, gritty, or too black, that indicates it wasn't changed for a long time. The most worrying sign is the famous mayonnaise, a kind of creamy, milky, coffee-colored paste. That mixture appears when water is getting into the oil, usually through a damaged head gasket. And repairing that is expensive. Very expensive. If you have the opportunity, and the seller allows it, look under the oil cap. There you can see if there is sludge buildup, wear on the camshaft, or a dark brown color that reveals poor lubrication. A well-maintained engine looks wet, clean, and even. A poorly maintained engine looks dirty, with dry areas, crust, or even marked metal. This test might seem insignificant, but it's one of the simplest methods to know how a car was treated for years. No quick clean and no seller's trick can hide a neglected engine on the inside. Number 10. Timing belt and accessory belts. Number 10 is critical because it can save you a lot of money. The timing belt is one of the most important parts of the engine, and also one of the most expensive to replace. If it breaks, it can destroy valves, pistons, and even completely ruin an engine. And the worst part is that sometimes it gives no warning before failing. That's why it's vital to ask for history or receipts for its change. Belts usually have replacement intervals between 80,000 and 120,000 miles, depending on the car. If the seller says, "I think it was changed, the previous owner told me he changed it," or "Don't worry, it's fine," that doesn't count. If there's no proof, you have to assume it was not changed. Besides the main belt, Check the accessory belts. The one for the alternator, the one for the air conditioning, and any others. A cracked, dry, or too hard belt indicates wear. If it makes noises when starting the engine or when turning the steering wheel, it's even worse. Number 9. Cooling system, hoses and coolant reservoir. The cooling system is one of the points that most reveals the real condition of a used car. Many buyers focus on the engine, the mileage, or the interior. But the radiator and its hoses are like the cover letter of the care the car received. If there is negligence there, it may have spread to the rest of the vehicle. The first thing to check are the main hoses, the radiator hoses, the thermostat hose, and the ones going to the heater core. When a car has gone years without proper maintenance, these hoses start to become hard like plastic. They lose flexibility, get filled with micro cracks, and sometimes even feel like they have little internal bumps. Just press them by hand when the engine is cold. A healthy hose is flexible, returns to its shape, and feels homogeneous. A dry hose feels rigid, almost cracked. Hoses that are starting to fail are a warning sign because they can burst on the highway, come loose, or start to drip. And a coolant leak doesn't forgive. In 30 seconds you can go from a hot engine to an overheated engine, and from there to a repair costing thousands. Then there is the coolant reservoir, which should be semi-transparent. This is where many cars show their true past. If the reservoir is clean, you can see the minimum and maximum marks, and the liquid has a consistent color, green, yellow, blue, or pink, depending on the type. That's a good sign. But if the walls of the reservoir are brown, blackened, or covered with a sticky layer, that is a symptom of internal corrosion. Number 8. Exhaust smoke and cold behavior. The exhaust is the window through which an engine shows its health unfiltered. It doesn't lie, it doesn't hide, and it doesn't know how to act. What comes out of there is exactly what's happening inside the engine. That's why it's crucial to start the car when it's cold. A cold engine is like a person just waking up. If it has a problem, you notice it immediately. If when starting it you see persistent white smoke, not a normal small cloud of condensation but dense smoke that continues after several minutes, that means water is entering the combustion. The most common cause is a damaged head gasket, an expensive repair that many sellers try to hide. If the smoke has a sweet smell, it's even worse. It's coolant burning. Black smoke is a sign of a rich mixture, excess fuel entering the engine. The causes can be dirty injectors, failing oxygen sensors, a dirty MAF sensor, or even a fuel pump working poorly. It's not necessarily fatal, but it indicates neglect or lack of maintenance. The worst of all is blue smoke, which is recognized quickly because it's not just smoke, it's oil burning. That means internal wear, worn piston rings, damaged valve guides, or a turbocharger with leaks. All of those repairs are costly and none are a good sign for a car you intend to buy. Number 9. Clutch and manual transmission condition. The manual transmission can be one of the most expensive parts to repair in a used car, especially when the clutch is already tired. And the bad thing is that many buyers don't know how to detect it, because a skilled seller can hide superficial signs, but they can't hide what it feels like to drive it. The first thing to check is the engagement point of the clutch pedal. If the clutch engages practically at the very top, that's a sign of advanced wear. If it engages too low, there may be problems with the slave cylinder or the hydraulic system. The ideal is a firm, progressive engagement point in the middle of the pedal travel. Then there is the classic handbrake test. Put the car in first gear, engage the handbrake, and slowly release the clutch without accelerating. If the engine stalls quickly, the clutch is strong. If the car tries to move without stalling, or if it doesn't stall even when you release almost the entire pedal, that means the clutch is slipping. And a slipping clutch isn't going to get better, it only gets worse. If this guide is helping you avoid being sold a car disguised as a Frankenstein, subscribe and leave your like, because the next points are where the most expensive mistakes are hidden. Number 6. Basic electrical system. Battery, alternator, and warning lights. The electrical system is one of the Achilles heels of used cars, and also one of the points that many buyers completely ignore. Interestingly, it's also one of the easiest to check without being a mechanic. It all starts with the battery, the alternator, and, of course, the dashboard full of lights that aren't there for decoration, even if some sellers swear they are. Checking the battery is essential because a worn battery can give symptoms that seem like serious engine failures. An engine that starts slowly, that vibrates when starting, or that makes a click and goes silent isn't necessarily dying. It might just be a dead battery. But here's the catch. When a battery is near the end of its life, it can also start causing intermittent blackouts, sensor failures, and even triggering error lights on the dashboard. And that, for an unsuspecting buyer, can seem like pure terror. The best way to check a battery is to measure its voltage at rest. When cold and disconnected, it should read between 12.6 and 12.8 volts. If it's below 12.4, it's already weakened. If it drops below 12, it probably won't survive much longer. And if the owner claims, "It started fine yesterday, I don't know what happened," they are probably lying, or the battery is already dead and just needs to be buried. But the battery is only half the system. The alternator is what really keeps the car alive, and checking it before buying a used car is one of the most important steps. With the engine running, you should see a stable charging voltage between 13.5 and 14 volts. If it reads less than 13, the alternator is failing or the belt is slipping. If it reads more than 14.5, the regulator is damaged and could burn out electronic components. A faulty alternator is one of the most expensive repairs within the electrical system, and many sellers know it. That's why they turn the car off quickly, avoid letting you check the voltage, or say the typical phrase, "That little noise is normal in old cars." No, it is not. Number 5. Power steering, turning noises, and hydraulic pump. The power steering reveals many things about the real condition of a used car. It doesn't just speak about maintenance, it also exposes impacts, hidden repairs, and abuse by the previous owner. Checking it is simple, but its failures can cost a lot, especially if there is damage to the rack or the hydraulic pump. The first step is to check the power steering reservoir. The fluid should be clear, usually red or amber, depending on the type. If it's dark brown, black, or smells burnt, it means it was never changed. Aged hydraulic fluid loses lubrication and causes internal wear. A damaged power steering pump can cost as much as a small engine. If the car uses electric power steering, check for error codes, stiffness in the assistance, or strange noises when turning. Repairing an electric power steering motor can be even more expensive. With the engine running, the main test is to turn the steering wheel completely to one side and then to the other. If you hear a loud moan, a kind of hydraulic groan, that indicates the pump is struggling to generate pressure. A vehicle in good condition shouldn't sound like you're crushing a hydraulic cat. Clicks also matter. If you hear metallic clicks when turning, there could be damage to tie rod ends, ball joints, or CV joints. And if the steering stiffens at times or feels like it has points of resistance, there is probably internal wear in the rack. The steering wheel should also return to center by itself after turning it. If it doesn't, the alignment is off or the rack has worn areas. Number 4. Test drive, alignment, vibrations, brakes, and shifting. The test drive is where it's really revealed how good or how bad the car is. You can check the engine, the hoses, the fluids, the interior, but nothing substitutes what it feels like to drive it. Here, nothing can be disguised. If something vibrates, makes noise, shakes, or smells funny, you will notice it. The first thing is to take the car on the highway and get it up to about 70 miles per hour. That speed is enough for vibrations to appear that you don't feel in the city. If the steering wheel vibrates, it could be a balancing problem, a deformed wheel, or even damaged suspension. If the vibration comes from the seat, it could be an engine mount or a bent axle. Then there is the steering wheel test. Let it go gently for a couple of seconds, always on a straight and safe road. If the car pulls to one side, the alignment is off, or the car has suffered a strong impact and the chassis is off-center. This test reveals more than any conversation with the seller. Braking is another crucial part. At low speed, a healthy car brakes straight, without squealing, without vibrations in the pedal, and without making you think something just broke. At high speed, a car with warped brake rotors will vibrate as if the suspension were made of jelly. That vibration isn't just uncomfortable. It means there are worn parts that need to be changed soon. The behavior in curves also shows the health of the suspension. If the car leans too much, bounces several times, or makes noises when going over bumps, then the shock absorbers, bushings, or ball joints are in bad shape. It's a typical repair in old cars, but it's costly. The transmission should go into all gears without resistance. Reverse is particularly important. If it grinds, if it gets stuck, or if you have to use extra force, it's a bad sign. In a manual transmission, the shifts should feel firm but smooth. In an automatic, the shifts should not be harsh or take too long. The test drive is the point where the car reveals its soul. And if what you feel is insecurity, vibration, or strange noises, you are not looking at an opportunity. You are looking at a problem that someone wants you to adopt. Number 3. Bodywork, hidden dents, and poor quality repairs. The bodywork is one of the parts where the most lies are hidden when it comes to selling a used car. Dents aren't necessarily the end of the world. A car may have had a minor collision and still be perfectly functional. The real problem isn't the dent, it's the cheap, quick, and rushed repair that some shops do so it looks good from afar and bad up close. And when you're buying, everything is set up for you to see it from afar. The inspection starts by observing the alignment of the doors, hood, and trunk. Each of these elements should open and close effortlessly, without hitting, without rubbing, and without needing an extra little push. When a door sags when you open it, or when the hood lifts up more on one side than the other, it clearly means there was a previous impact. Most sellers will say, "It just adjusts like that," but metals don't misalign by themselves. Someone forced them. The next step is to observe the color between panels. A healthy car has a uniform tone, even if years have passed since it left the factory. When the color of the fender doesn't match the door, and the bumper looks duller or shinier than the rest, there's a red flag. Color inconsistency reveals repaints due to impacts. And although a professional repaint isn't bad, cheap repaints usually have problems that betray their poor quality. A very clear sign is finding paint on plastics that originally shouldn't be painted. Moldings, mirror bases, rubber seals, bumpers, and some areas of the bumpers were designed without paint. If you see that surface colored the same as the body, someone applied a paint gun wildly without removing parts. And that usually means they did it to cover up larger damages they didn't want to repair properly. Then comes the deeper inspection, looking for signs of body filler. Body filler is used to fill dents when the metal isn't straightened correctly. If you run your hand over a suspicious area and feel waves, irregularities, or surfaces that are too smooth but with weird curves, there's probably body filler underneath. You can also observe reflections in the paint. If they look deformed, as if you're looking into a mirror made of jelly, there's a poor repair there. Painted rubber seals are another clear proof. Many rushed repaints treat the rubber seals of the windows, the weather stripping, and the gaskets as if they were part of the body and paint them without protection. That careless finish says a lot about the quality of the work and the general care of the previous owner. The headlights also tell stories. A headlight that is misaligned, sunk in, or sticking out compared to the other is almost always a sign of a front-end collision. If you also notice newly changed screws, non-original brackets, or color differences in the headlight support, there's no doubt left. And finally, there are the frame rails and crossmembers, the true bones of the car. They are the definitive proof of a serious impact. If a rail is bent or has fresh welds or irregularities, it means the car suffered a strong impact. Even if the car looks beautiful on the outside, structural damage always affects safety, stability, and resale value. The bodywork is the open book of the car's past. If you read it well, you'll know exactly if you're buying history or problems. Number 2. Condition of suspension, brakes, and tires. The suspension, brakes, and tires are the set of elements that define how the car behaves in motion. And they are also among the most expensive systems to repair if they are in bad condition. That's why it's crucial to check them before buying a used car. Start with the shock absorbers. With the car off, press down firmly on one corner of the body and release it. The car should go down and return to its position with a single bounce. If it bounces 2 or 3 times, the shock absorbers are dead. A worn shock absorber doesn't just affect comfort, it compromises stability, braking distance, and grip in curves. On a wet road, it can be the difference between braking in time and losing control. The brake discs speak for themselves. If they have a pronounced lip, it means they are worn and need changing. If they have deep grooves, it's likely that the pads wore down to the metal and scored the disc. Also, warped discs generate vibrations during braking, something you'll easily see in the test drive. The tires are another silent witness to the car's past. Check the DOT date printed on the sidewall. If they are more than 6 years old, even if the tread looks good, they are hardened and have less grip. Also check if they show small cracks, which indicates aging and risk of a blowout. Uneven wear is the most important warning. If a tire is worn more on one side than the other, it means the alignment is off and has been for a long time. That often reveals deeper problems. worn suspension, loose ball joints, deteriorated bushings, or even a twisted chassis. A car that wears tires unevenly usually has a history the seller doesn't want to tell you. You also need to check for noises when going over bumps. If you hear clicks, hollow thuds, or creaks, there are loose parts. Bushings, control arms, mounts, and ball joints are the typical culprits. And a car with neglected suspension is a car that hasn't received proper maintenance. The suspension and brakes are the system that separates safety from disaster. If there are faults here, it doesn't matter if the engine is perfect, the car is not a good buy. Number 1. The running engine, the ultimate test. This is the most important point of the top list. You can check the bodywork, the suspension, the brakes, the tires, the interior, and the car's paperwork, but nothing substitutes what the engine reveals when it's running. Here there is no makeup or excuses. The running engine shows the whole truth. The test begins by starting the engine and letting it stabilize at idle. A healthy engine smoothly drops to a stable RPM, without strong vibrations, without shaking, and without correcting itself every 2 seconds. If the engine trembles, sputters, or does a strange little dance, something is wrong. Dirty injectors, bad coils, incorrect mixture, or compression problems. Metallic noises are the most alarming clue. Knocking, constant ticking, rattling, or grinding sounds are usually signs of internal wear. A healthy engine doesn't sound like a bucket of tools being shaken. Exhaust smoke is another critical diagnosis. With the engine warm, the smoke should be practically imperceptible. If it's thick white, water is entering the combustion. If it's black, the mixture is incorrect. If it's blue, the engine is burning oil. And any seller who says, "That's normal in old cars," is lying to you directly. The dipstick test is also revealing. Pulling it out while the engine is running allows you to observe if smoke or excessive pressure comes out. If it spits smoke, it means worn piston rings or an internal compression problem. It's not a car to buy. The engine temperature should stabilize in the normal range and stay there without going up or down. An engine that overheats is a guaranteed money pit. An engine that stays cold might have a stuck thermostat. In both cases, the car is asking for help. The running engine is like an interview with no possibility of lying. Here everything is known: wear, abuse, maintenance, neglect. Everything comes to light in a matter of minutes. That's why it is, without a doubt, the most important point of the top list. This test decides if the car is worth what they're asking or if you're about to buy a problem with wheels. If this guide helped you, subscribe, leave your like, and tell me, what's the first thing you check when you buy a used car? Your experience could save someone from losing a lot of money.